Hey there, folks. Hope you're doing well today. We recently made a video about how a historian's genealogy content where she explores how whiteness is more of a label rather than a single ancestry pissed off a bunch of white nationalists. And then we covered the escalation, how it went from bad faith criticism to slurs to harassment to ultimately death threats that eventually led this creator to removing herself from YouTube. And this is a loss for society. Now, you guys had some really good comments on this video, so we thought we'd take some time and explore some of those. And let's begin with this one. Politics in this country has become something actually very simple, for the moment anyways. In this moment, politics in the US isn't about right and left. It's about having empathy or not, having morality or not, caring about your neighbors or not, caring about other countries or not. Not to say there isn't a right-left or teams component to it, of course there is. And we all know which side is which, but it's never been more clear that one side is more morally bankrupt than the other. That was really well said, and a lot of important things were touched on there, like empathy and being principled in good morals. Also, this idea that it's never been more clear that one side is more morally bankrupt than the other. Yeah, we could point to so many people following the pussy-grabbing Pied Piper who was so obviously a criminal and demonstrated to be so 6 ways to Sunday. But boy, did they own the libs. Just like we see in this next comment here. Cheesecake is gross, says white and proud. So a lot to take in here, right? Cheesecake is using a Dragon Ball Z avatar, and he's proud of having this kind of generic label of a title. But let's be clear here, this pride isn't based on culture, achievement, or history in the normal sense. It's based on identity as defense. White functions as this last-ditch identity. When you look at white nationalists globally, they don't have a shared language. They don't have a shared religion. They don't have a shared homeland. And they don't have a shared culture they actually practice. So then whiteness itself becomes the identity. Not Irish, not German, not Italian, just white. And this is where this pride replaces insecurity. White nationalism thrives where people feel economically stagnant or socially irrelevant, culturally mocked or displaced, or politically powerless. So pride in whiteness fills this void left by a loss of status or loss of certainty or loss of meaning. It basically says, even if I've done nothing, I belong to something superior. And so, again, it's really just trying to compensate. Kind of like all the preppers with the really big rifles. This next comment reads, people are crashing out because someone reminded them how hard they failed world history class. White supremacists are so stupid they lose their goddamn minds when you show them a map and say, if you were born in this area, your ancestors might have come from Scotland. It's just too complex a concept compared to identifying as a color, apparently. It's really pathetic. Now, I think that last comment and this comment are just really hit the nail on the head. She should have just replied like Katniss Everdeen. It must have been a pretty weak system if I'm all that's required to disturb it so much. And this is really true. When you look to so many of these people, they try to come across really tough and superior, but in so many different ways, they're so fragile. It's almost like this white fragility. Okay, so let's take a look at this next one. You do know where this leads, though. Politicians telling you that this can't be possibly solved unless every user is forced to use their full name online and AI gets full access to surveil all activity. And then a citizen score is introduced to discourage bad behavior. The stupidity and aggression are wanted. They're part of the plan. Demand protection, but also demand education and community work for integration. The only way for people to overcome stranger danger impulses is positive interaction. A lot of people never leave their local area, and 20-something people they personally know. They are not built for new ideas, new people, and least of all, the ability to be heard all around the world. There's work to be done before they could handle all the possibilities. And this is a true statement. As we've been making content, as we've been traveling around the United States, as we've been learning more, you find a lot of places in the United States that just have a ton of diversity. And you'll also find a ton that don't. Now, to continue with the comment, if I had stayed at home and never gone to higher education, I would have never met a few Turkish and one Vietnamese classmates. That's it. That's what we had back then. Not a whole lot of diversity here, even though I'm only 30 minutes from 3 medium-sized industrial towns with universities and all. And there you will find most nationalities. But as long as you don't actually live there, it will always be a spectacle which you go and visit for the day, but you're not a part of. And then came the internet, and really a handful of asylum seekers. Two factors which some people cannot handle with some help and explanation. And unfortunately, the right wing's really effective with most of their messaging, and social media lives for enforcing the bubble you're in. I can't fault them for not resisting the amount of manipulation, seeing how most people don't realize how they're being manipulated. And so a lot of what this person's saying holds a lot of weight. I think just to add to this, a lot of people also lack the critical thinking skills to be able to navigate all these ideas and the manipulation. Now, this person finishes off the comment by saying, "That's no excuse though for cyber stalking and death threats. That still needs to be handled. I'm just saying there is no easy solution for complex problems, and people will call for easy solutions. Changing people's minds for the better takes time and effort." And we'll just add to that one, and cartoons. The next comment reads, "No, I love her. She was such a small creator, but she did really good work, and her videos were always really interesting. I remember when she had a few hundred subscribers. Some of the MAGA are determined to take away everything from us, especially anything having to do with honestly analyzing our history or privilege or bias. They are desperate to rewrite history and morph all of the things that we love into unwoke culture ideology." And this is true. This is why we wanted to document this. She is a really good content creator. The production value of her videos is really high. She does a great job of organizing and presenting her ideas and really doing it all in an unbiased way. This next comment reads, "These losers don't want to accept the fact that their ancestors were Europeans who came to America illegally, never went back and created anchor babies, cementing their illegal bloodlines while crucifying every other race that did the same thing." Reading through these comments, what stands out is the contrast. On one side, you see people wrestling honestly with complexity, with how identities form, with how isolation breeds fear, how manipulation works, and how exposure to other people actually changes us. On the other side, you see an identity so thin and defensive that even a map feels like an attack. And so what this shows is that this was never about genealogy or history or even disagreement. It's about whether people are willing to live in a world that's complicated, where identity has context, where history has nuance, and belonging isn't threatened by learning more about it. And that matters because the ones who can't handle complexity don't just retreat, they lash out. They simplify, they dehumanize, and when it isn't enough, they escalate. That's how you end up with educators being harassed off of platforms, not because they lied, but because they told the truth calmly and clearly. There are no easy fixes here. Changing minds takes time, exposure, education, and community. Not intimidation and not silence, but documenting this, talking about it. Because if we let fear and fragility dictate who gets to speak, then the loss isn't just one creator, it's our ability to understand ourselves at all.